So we both decided backstage that we're going to go on a bike ride after that. We were really inspired.
Well, I'm wearing my glucose monitor, so it's kind of cool to see. I get updates, but it's good to see lactose too. I'm excited to get that approved, and more wearables, the better.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, so Breeze is based out of Salt Lake City. So have you seen an uptick in flights this week for Brainstorm Tech?
You know, we actually have flights into Provo, and we serve a couple times a day from Orange County Airport. So
Okay.
I think there's a lot of tech down there, so I'm sure we had some people coming in.
Do we have anyone here who took a Breeze flight in?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we got a couple people.
Going over there. We don't have a lot of service out of here. If we were in Charleston, then a lot of fans would go up, or in Providence, Rhode Island, where we have big bases of operation.
Got it. Well, David, we're really excited to have you today. As Andrew mentioned, you have founded several different airlines. And I guess my first question would be for you, why start a brand new one? What's different about Breeze?
So, you know, after I left JetBlue, I was born in Brazil. And my parents were living there. My dad was a journalist. And so I had the opportunity to be born there. And I don't know, and then I went back as a missionary for a couple of years and speak Portuguese. And I always wanted to make a difference for Brazil and the people. And today it's an amazing company. Azul has 1,000 flights a day. We move 100,000 people. So I was there, and
that was the airline you founded right before Breeze, right? Azul?
Yes,
okay.
Yeah. So as I look back to the U.S. after 15 years, the airline started 15 years ago. And today like I said, we have 1,000 flights. We fly 100,000 people. We deliver 200,000 packages door to door. I just looked back at the U.S. market and I said, you know, there may be an opportunity here. What's different about the U.S. airline business today than when I started JetBlue is it's a heck of a lot better. I mean, Delta, you can, partially because of JetBlue, you can sit down and there's live TV, and you have your free internet, and the flights go on time. It's a much better product than what it was back when I started JetBlue. Also, Delta, United, everyone went through bankruptcy, so they were able to clean up all their legacy costs. So it was a much different market and a much better market. But what the trends that I saw, because the cost had started going up, is that the big airlines were forcing everyone through hubs. If you lived in places like Hartford, Connecticut, if you lived in Huntsville, Alabama.
Or I live in Bentonville, Arkansas. So,
if you lived in Bentonville, Arkansas, you had to always go to a hub. You had no really other choices to do that. Or if you lived in Huntsville, the other option, you could drive to Nashville, 2 hours. So Providence, you could go to Boston, but you couldn't have the flights out of Providence. So we thought if we could just get you there for twice as fast for half the price, and do it with a different product mix than the traditional ULCCs. We call ourselves an NLCC, a nice low-cost carrier, and have options. You know, what's different today, Jessica, about the industry is about 25% of the people want an upgraded experience. You know, one of the reasons the Southwest is kind of struggling today is that kind of this scramble for seats, and it was cool back in the 70s and 80s and even the 90s, but today, when Delta's so much better, when United's so much better, people don't want to fight for a seat. They want to pay a little extra to have extra legroom. They want to be able to pay a little extra for a first-class seat, if a lot extra for a first-class seat. So on our Breeze airplanes today, first of all, we have about 200 routes. We serve 60 cities. And about 90% of our routes, we have no nonstop competition. And then when
you're outside of the hubs always.
Yeah, we're always outside. So Huntsville, Alabama, we fly Huntsville to Las Vegas, to Los Angeles, to Tampa, to Orlando, places people want to go. They don't have to connect through Dallas, or they don't have to connect through Atlanta, for example. So we can get you there a lot quicker.
So also, let me ask you, so you started this company at a very interesting time in the market. So you started building it right before COVID happened, and then you launched it in early 2021, which is arguably one of the most devastating periods for airlines. So how was that?
No, it was rough. It was really rough. And it was not only because, I mean, the business was coming back, but it was really the supply chain. It was being able to hire people. During COVID, a lot of people decided they didn't want to go back to work, or they wanted to work a lot less, or they wanted to work from home. And so it was really, really tough. And the big airlines had laid off, not laid off, they had bought off 7,000 pilots. The most expensive pilots, they took some of the $53 billion they got from the US government and said, how about you guys all retire? And then when the business came roaring back, they said, holy, crap, we got to hire 7,000 new pilots. So they started going into the regional carriers, and the regional carriers couldn't fly. The FAA had staffing issues to certify stuff, so it was a really challenging time to get it going. But thankfully now we're really hitting our stride, and pilot issue has been resolved. We can hire anyone we want to. We have over 800 applications for pilots right now. So
is the pilot issue totally resolved now? It is.
It is mainly. There's still a kind of a captain issue. You have to fly 1,000 hours to become a captain. So captains are a little sparse. It's interesting. The big airlines, the first officer pay has gone up so much that a lot of these people don't want to upgrade to captain because it affects their quality of life. So you may have sitting in Miami, have a great line, and then they say, you want to be captain? You can be on reserve in Newark if you want. And they're like, no thanks, because I'm making 200 grand sitting here in Miami, and I can make 350 in New York, but it's not worth it to me. So it's kind of the marginal utility of money, it has forced a lot of people not to want to upgrade to captain.
So I don't think we can have a conversation today about the airline industry without talking about safety. There's been whistleblowers at Boeing. They've had a lot of safety issues with their Boeing 737s. People I talk to, including myself, think a little differently every time you get onto an airplane now. And so every airline carrier is having to think about that. You are in an interesting situation because you're also a startup where your brand is less known. And so how do you approach safety, and how do you get customers comfortable with flying Breeze in today's day and age?
It's safety is traveling by air, be it on a 737 MAX, an A220, what we fly. It is incredibly safe. I mean, it is unbelievably safe. I mean, it's really hard for anyone to think of the last accident of an airplane, a large transport airplane in the United States. It has been so long. I think, well, there was a regional plane, Colgan Air, that crashed into Buffalo. That was maybe 10 years ago. But if you before that, it was like American Airlines out of JFK was like right after 9/11. I mean, it was a long.
But losing a door during your flight is also very terrifying.
It is, but it shows the amazingly engineering on that airplane, that you lost a door and nobody was injured, and the plane was able to last. Now, obviously, things happen. Tires fall off airplanes, but the ability for these airplanes to withstand that kind of stuff is really incredibly.
So does that feel like a non-issue for you at Breeze? Is that something that customers
obviously
don't seem to be very worried
dismiss
about?
people like you and everybody else, but it really is a non-issue. But safety is our number one value. Every time I start an airline, we create values, and safety is always at the very top. And so we talk about safety. Safety is part of our culture. Everybody can stop an airplane anytime if they feel like it's safety. So it's ingrained in our culture, and because of that, and because of the work the FAA does, and because every time there's an accident or something, you close that something that caused it, and so that's why it's really so incredibly safe to fly.
Another thing that I feel is top of mind to many of us is customer service, and I'm thinking back in 2022 when Southwest had that insane scheduling crisis, and I think we can all relate to one of the most frustrating things in the world is if your flight gets canceled or delayed and you can't get a hold of a human on the phone. I know that Breeze is very digital first in its approach to dealing with customers, delays, issues. Have you rethought that at all in terms of having people interact with the chatbot versus a human?
Yes. We just hired a brand new chief customer officer.
Okay.
And
She
is in charge.
When did she join?
She started last week.
Oh, okay.
She's incredible. And she is in charge of any customer contact position. So she's in charge of all of our airports, all of our flight attendants, and all of what we call our guest empowerment agents that work at home. So anyone that has contact with a customer, she's in charge of. So, you know, her priorities are to make us the most on-time airline in the country. I'm not content until we're 90% on time. We already we cancel 1 in every 1,000 flights. So we hardly ever cancel a flight, but sometimes we have to overnight it or run late or something. So that's, you know, her number one priority.
And it's 90% on time?
It will be. Today
Okay,
we're around
okay.
70. We need to be better. So
what about for those 3 out of 10 people that are?
So then the second thing is our get agents. Right now it's digitally. We talk to you by digitally. We don't have a big call center. Everybody works at home. So one of her jobs is to be quicker to call people. So if somebody contacts us, it's interesting that my daughter actually works for the company. She's in Dayton, Ohio, and she does all the MPS stuff. And she told me the other day, Dad, there's a couple of people that were blind that said they can't deal with this. How do we deal with them? You know, and I said, well, we need to call them. So, you know, we're going to be much quicker to be able to, we can interact with them, but then we can say, we'll call you. And so that's a much quicker.
So you are incorporating more humans into the customer service.
Exactly right.
Okay.
As it goes through, you know, using the technology and the AI to determine who really needs to be called, and then we're quicker to call them. And then we're also going to have more people, our people at the airport. Right now, a lot of that's contracted, and the beautiful thing about having those two things combined is that somebody can actually work from home a couple days a week, and then they can come to the airport and work a couple days a week. So it's a much more attractive job than having to go to the airport every week or stay home all the time. So we can mix those two.
Okay, so I think we only have time for one more question, so I'm going to ask you to keep your answer brief so we can fit it in.
I'm watching the clock myself.
So you have been in this industry for a really long time, have founded so many different airline companies. What do you think this industry is going to look like in the next 5 years, particularly after JetBlue said earlier this year it was terminating its proposed acquisition of Spirit Airlines because of antitrust issues? What is the next 5 years going to look like in your opinion?
Well, I think, you know, it's. I think AI will play a huge part. AI in the operation of our airplanes, for better fuel economy, for predictive maintenance, so we can predict when parts are going to fail quicker, so we don't have less cancellations. A really more connected super apps that understand you and know you better and can serve you up relevant stuff instead of just blasting out emails all the time. And so I think, you know, AI is going to change the experience dramatically, make it better, make our costs lower, and really communicate better with our customers and lower our marketing costs because we'll know our customers better. You know, today we have an upgraded experience. You know, you can go and say, you want to buy the $49 fare? No, I want the $99 fare that has the extra legroom and the free bags, or I want the $149 fare that has the first class seat. And so we have that ability, like you can't get on Spirit or Frontier, and we can take you to a bunch of places that people don't fly. So, you know, there's a lot of exciting times.
That's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.